video when I drove it. Torque starts to drop at around 5,000. Welcome back, guys. It's a beautiful day. Well, actually, it's a really hot day, but yeah, good to have nice blue skies here in Thailand. Normally it's extremely smoggy. Today we have the 944 finally back. It's been away for a long time. Now, if you haven't seen my first video, I gave my first impressions on this car, and in my last video I talked about how this car will undergo a standalone ECU conversion, and I promised to make a follow-up video about the standalone ECU conversion. So it's taken around almost 4 months. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but we ran into several mechanical issues whilst we were doing the standalone conversion.
Yeah, okay. Very good.
For example, the starter motor had an issue, the fuel pump had an issue, the torque tube had an issue, so we just ran into a bunch of issues. I mean, the standalone project itself, it could have taken just maybe 1 month, 1.5 months, but because we discovered all these issues, it just went on and on. Which, by the way, I must say, this is one of the advantages of going standalone, because when you do go standalone, when all of this data is available to you on the laptop, you are able to troubleshoot everything else that can be wrong with the car. It's just good to do it. But at the end of this video, I will try to summarize for what type of cars that I believe are suitable for going standalone. Some cars maybe not. Some cars are not worth it. Some cars, I think, if you're having some issues, then it's a good idea to consider going standalone. I do apologize for the interior of this car. It looks extremely tired, but be assured that it is under restoration and will look nice once it's done. So this is the engine bay right now, and if you are not an expert in 944's, you probably will not be able to tell that this engine management system has been fiddled with. But one of the biggest giveaways is this. We removed the spinny style distributor with essentially cam and crank sensor over here. This is from a Mitsubishi Evo 1, 2, and 3, and we would have opted for a Toyota unit because that uses a magnetic sensor instead of a Hall effect, which this one uses. But the Toyota distributor is much longer and would get in the way of the pop-up headlight mechanism, which is not ideal. So the original distributor, if I can show you, kept it here. So we just took it out, machined a piece, an adapter, if you want to call it that, to fit this. And actually we did have to do quite a bit of machining, so we did this and I guess you could call it a bracket for the individual coils. So originally it's a single coil with the spark plug HD leads, but now it is modernized with individual coils. And these coils are from Toyota, but not Denso. It's from Diamond or something. I have no idea what Diamond is, but okay, Toyota Diamond. And what else did we do? Well, we also had to fit a more modern throttle position sensor, which is down here. And as you can see, if I just zoom in, there is a custom bracket for that too. This TPS is from a Nissan, so already you can see there's a Mitsubishi, Toyota, and Nissan, all Japanese brands, which is perfect for the Thai market because you can get all of these parts really cheaply and easily, I must add. In terms of sensors, like I already mentioned, we have the cam and crank sensor, we have the TPS sensor, which I showed you, we have an exhaust engine coolant temperature sensor, we have an intake air temperature sensor, and you might be asking, where is the manifold air pressure sensor, the MAP? Well, this is where the Maxxecu Street comes into its own because it has a built-in MAP sensor, which means we just have to reroute one of the vacuum tubes directly into the ECU and it could read the air pressure inside the manifold, which is great. And finally, we also installed a wideband O2 sensor, which is able to precisely measure the air-fuel ratio and run it on a closed loop system, which just gives better performance and economy overall. So what did all this amount to? Well, of course we expected a horsepower increase, but to be honest, the increase was not that much. So I'm gonna come sit down whilst I talk about the before and after, the horsepower and torque figures. Okay, so the original factory engine setup, it was making 136 horsepower. After the standalone, it increased to 155, which is about almost 14% gain in horsepower, which is what I expected. I told my friend about 10 to 15% gain. So that's all very good. Oh, I should add that all of these horsepower figures were measured at the hubs, not at the wheels, not at the crank, at the hubs. So you can do your own conversion there. But, I must say, so we did the power figure pull once, it did 155, and then we started noticing some strange issues going on with the torque tube, which actually resulted from the flywheel or something, which had nothing to do with the standalone system itself. But the Porsche mechanic took the car, and whilst he was doing all of that, he also noticed that the valve train is a bit louder than he liked. So what he did was he reset the valve clearances and made it bigger than before. He increased the clearance by one size. That's what he said. He didn't give me the numbers. He just said he increased it by one feeler gauge size, just to protect the rocker arms, which actually, when we cut the car back, we did another dyno run, and I was so disappointed because the entire line, the entire power figure line, the entire torque figure line just dropped parallelly from before, and instead of making 155, it was making 148. Yeah, so we lost about 7 horsepower. Can you really feel that on the road? Well, maybe, because the entire line just shifted down. It looked as if the compression ratio was reduced. But okay, we gotta believe in the mechanic because he says that he's concerned about the rocker arms. So better safe than sorry, I guess. Okay, so that's about it. That's all I have to say. And now for the bits that you guys have been waiting for is the test drive. But if I have to be honest, if I did the test drive 2 months ago, I would be able to tell you exactly what this car feels like before and after. But now that it's been almost 4 months, I must be honest, I've driven a lot of stuff between when I first drove this car and now, between these 4 months. I'm finding it difficult to recall exactly what this car felt like to drive. So maybe instead of giving you a direct comparison before and after, I'll just give you my re-impression of this car, if that's a word. So yeah, we're gonna swap over to the GoPro and go from there. Bye guys. Okay, we are recording. What is this? Is the most useless compartment ever. But start her up. Fires right up just as before. Good job to the guy who did the ECU. Oh, I must mention that the location of the ECU is under there. Same place as it was before. I'll show you guys in a separate footage. Close the door, which reminds you you're in a Porsche, as I mentioned before. On the AC because it's 38 degrees outside and I'm melting. Make sure I don't get the microphone. Okay. Seatbelt light is on. Seatbelt light is off. I don't remember the gear stick being so big, black, and girthy. It's a little bit overcompensating. It's making me feel insecure, to be honest. But once you start driving this car, your insecurity will be gone because you'll be reminded how confident inspiring this car makes you. Because it's so easy to drive. It is just a sweet little car to drive. So let's go. Let's get going. By the way, we got the air pressure gauge working again. It wasn't working before. We ordered a new gauge. So everything is working now. Except for the battery voltage gauge, which seems to be giving the wrong voltage reading. We double checked the voltage in the ECU and it's reading fine. This is just wrong. It's too low. So for the eagle-eyed viewers, just ignore that. One other thing that we did unrelated to the ECU, which I believe improves the drivability of this car by a lot, is the clutch. Last time in my drive, I complained about the clutch biting point being way too high, making it very, very hard to drive. It's been fixed. Some of the viewers pointed out that, oh no, this is normal for the early 944's. Well, you're wrong, it's not normal. It was way too high. The biting point was basically near the top. Now it's perfect. It's somewhere around maybe 50 to 60% of the entire travel, which finally I'm able to shift properly like that and even rev match and heel toe. Yeah, as soon as you get going, as soon as you get the engine revving, you are reminded that this is a very raw car. It's super fizzy. The entire engine just fizzes. Even with the balance shafts, which Porsche outsourced to Mitsubishi, this is still an extremely fizzy and lively engine. You really are able to tell that this car is from the late 70s, from the 80s. It has that charm to it. And if you want the classic Porsche experience, you don't need to buy an air-cooled car. You could just buy one of these. This is so much more mechanical than an MX-5, let's say. It drives just as fun, if if not better. It has way more feel. Way more feel. The steering feel is better. The shifter feel, maybe the shifting action is similar, but the feel of the shifter is so much better. This girthy gear stick freaking vibrates all the time. This will give any sick person the best multiple orgasm of their life if they sit on this thing, which I don't recommend. Please don't do that. Alright, now for the important reveal. What do I feel about this engine after the standalone? Well, if I'm being completely honest, I honestly don't remember what it felt like before. But what I can tell you is it definitely feels like the engine is running smoother than before. It's not as grainy as before, especially at lower revs. But in terms of power, delivery, well, I really can't tell the difference. It's not day and night. It's definitely not day and night. But in my previous test drive, I didn't really complain about the car feeling that it lacks power. And so, with the added reliability, the added refinement to the engine, and some extra horsepower on the top, I still think that doing a standalone on this car is worth it. Now, this might not be true for everyone, but it's as sweet as ever. Let's try to heel toe. Not too bad. Oh, a bit of oversteer just now. Not bad. Wasn't expecting that. And the way that it stepped out was very, very, very progressive. I probably could have been in second gear just now, but the way this engine is cammed, most of the torque is down low. At 3,000, it's already doing most of its torque delivery. So you don't really need to wind this engine out. Now this is something that running a standalone ECU will not help improve. Whatever the cam profile is before, it will of course stay the same. That is a mechanical design. But if you do go standalone, and if you want to modify this engine in the future, it will make use of that modification much more efficiently. If you get new cams on this car together with the standalone, you'll be able to extract more performance out of this car. So at idle is actually where you feel the most difference. Just smooth, no misfires, no nothing. Very, very smooth. I mean, it might also be because whilst we were doing the standalone conversion, we took out the old injectors just to see, and they were full of rust. I'll show you a picture. And now using these Toyota injectors, it's a better flow pattern. The combustion just must be so much better than before. Some things you don't see on the dyno chart, but you feel it when driving. On a hot day like this, 38 degrees, I'm probably losing at least 5 horsepower. The AC cranked on to the max as well. Yeah, this is one thing. So at 2,000, before it would be a bit more hesitant when you give it gas. Now it's instant. Throttle response is instant. That could be because of the new injectors, but also because of the individual coils which we installed. Let's do one more round. I have to say again that these brakes are not the best. Probably the biggest letdown of this car are the brakes, followed by the really awkward seating position, which I'm just struggling with, to be honest. Just have to get used to it, I guess. Not enough power to kick the tail out. No LSD. I absolutely love this shifter. It's actually on par with the S2000, but I might enjoy this a bit more. It's not as precise, but I feel so manly shifting this black dildo. And it really is. It's freaking vibrating its nuts off. It's insane. Maybe that's because of the balance shaft. I mean, the torque tube. Maybe the torque tube is still not 100% taken care of, but Jesus, it's freaking... It's alive. Yeah. Whilst we're on this bridge, I'll tell you guys a story. So now, my daughter, at night, she struggles sleeping, so I take her out on drives. And she really likes this bridge now. Under, but no fuel starvation, even with not much fuel left in the tank. I really sent it out there. Good. No issues with the engine, I am glad. I think if I did that before, the engine would have starved and misfired. I think that's about all I have to say. So, let's try to conclude. Who is the standalone ECU conversion for? Well, if you're doing it on a perfect car that's perfectly running, that you think is running perfectly, and all you want is to extract power, then maybe it's not the best thing to do. If you have an old car and you have just some gremlins that you are finding difficult to fix and it's giving you a headache, or you have to buy a sensor which is ridiculously expensive or ridiculously rare, then going standalone is something you should really consider. You will probably fix the problem that you cannot solve. Then you get the added benefit of maybe 10 to 15% more horsepower and future reliability, which could extend the engine lifetime. Another group of people that should consider running a standalone ECU conversion are those who want to modify their engines. If you want to modify your engine, you should definitely consider installing a standalone ECU, because that just gives you so much more flexibility when you bolt on whatever new part onto the car, and you can just tune it to make maximum use of whatever part you put on the car, let it be cams or intake kits or even a supercharger or turbocharger. Many of these stock ECUs back in the day are extremely limited in terms of their tunability. So having a ECU gives you all kinds of options. You can get dials to check your oil temps, water temps, all kinds of information that you want. Air fuel ratio, whatever you want. But circling back to this car, do I think the owner should have gone the standalone route? Well, yes, but only because he plans to modify this car further. He wants to make it a track car, and in that case, it makes perfect sense. He needs it for the reliability and the tunability in the future. But if he decides to keep it stock like how it was before, should he have gone standalone? Maybe not, because his car was actually running quite nicely. But by going standalone, we also did discover all of the potential issues that he would have ran into in the future, such as the injectors being in extremely bad shape. And so you just gotta see if it's worth it or not. Like, it's not cheap going standalone. It really is not cheap. This entire project cost about, I don't know, around $3,000, if not more. I don't remember the exact numbers. Ultimately, I think it's worth it. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.